I appreciate the kind introduction that Dean Burkhart has just given me. Before I begin, I would like to present a very good friend of mine with whom I worked in Germany last year as a Fulbright lecturer. I'd like to present President of the Pädagogische Hochschule in Oldenburg, biologist, Professor August Kelly. We certainly are very happy to have you here with us. This morning we traveled, after a manner of speaking, into outer space. I shall try to return from outer space, even the outer space of the educational world. As I talk upon the subject that was announced as education, satellite, and freedom, which possibly could be retitled, Shall We Europeanize American Education? Or shall we Sovietize American education? Sputnik was possibly, to us, an intellectual Pearl Harbor. It shocked us out of our complacency. And in a state of shock, we tended to react more than to reflect. One bit of evidence along the way may be this newspaper clipping that appeared in the Monthly Morning Star on May the 11th, 1958. Teacher Sovietizes classroom. Grades zoom from B to B minus. This was at Benaire, California. Russian teaching techniques worked wonders with American 7th graders. A teacher who tested them announced. For a week, with the full cooperation of his students, he acted the part of a Soviet pedagogue. His 44 pupils, who ranged from gifted to retarded, were told to pretend that they were Soviet citizens. Strict discipline was maintained in the classroom. There was no horseplay. The results at the end of 1 week, McWhirter gave his charges a rather stiff examination on what was studied. Grades zoomed from a class average of B to B minus. I guess the inference there is that recommends the adoption of Soviet education in the United States. As a result of Sputnik, there has been almost a national chorus of adverse criticism of the American schools. Ranking high probably would be the series of articles in Life magazine to which the school principals may have reacted in a somewhat adolescent manner. The Ladies' Home Journal, in which one of our alumni, Glenn M. White, published an essay. Glenn is the associate editor of the Ladies' Home Journal, marrying Irene Parker of Bremen, Indiana. We are a group of alumni, and I have mentioned Glenn for that reason, and for the reason that I am somewhat proud of him too. The Saturday Evening Post, etc., carried these articles of criticism. For us to do this is somewhat perplexing to Europeans. They are perplexed that we can be so savage in our negative self-criticism. I remember on an 800-mile lecture tour through Germany of speaking at Bamberg. That's in southern Germany, in Bavaria. And I'd been talking upon the American educational system in a not too unfriendly manner. After I had finished and we had the open forum discussion, one of my hearers produced a copy of the Life magazine that had a most adversely critical article of American education. It was difficult to understand that we expose sometimes in extreme ways in order to provoke improvement of that which is being criticized. As I share thinking with you on shall we Europeanize or Sovietize American education, I shall be speaking somewhat out of first-hand observation. Since the war, I might, for background, just say that I have been in Germany 5 different times on government assignment. My latest experience I referred to already as a Fulbright lecturer in Oldenburg. My experiences have been to be a participant in many different workshops, to have responsibility for the Education Experimental Center just outside of Munich, to be a regular faculty member, having regular lectures, of giving demonstration lessons on how to teach the social studies, and also shared in giving their examinations. Many international workshop conferences have enabled me to work with scholars and educators with from practically every country in Western Europe. So, though I shall draw probably unduly heavily upon the German educational system, for that is the one that I know best, I have had these other exposures as well, and they have served to concrete, to vivify, and to correct some of my book and magazine readings on European education. Naturally, on the other side, I've worked and grown up in the American educational system. As a premise, I would like to suggest that the basic challenge, as far as the relationship between the Soviet and ourselves is concerned, is not in battle hardware, nor is it in missiles. The basic challenge is in education. When we, as people engaging in education and teaching realize that that is our challenge. It makes our profession truly an adventure. It should put zest in our undertaking. It is a wonderful opportunity as well as a challenge which we have. Education may not only decide the arms race, it may supply that understanding between peoples to make the arms race unnecessary. I believe that international understanding is more important than international agreement. There are some differences that ought to be conserved. So I believe that understanding in many situations is more important than agreement. When we think of relating the European and the American educational systems, we are driven to comparing the European and American society. Education in Europe or in America reflects and undergirds its own social order and structure. In European society, as over against American society, we have a society that is an evolution out of a feudal order, while the American society is a product of the frontier. I think that is a basic thing, that a European society is grown out of a feudal order, while our American society is a product of the frontier. It means a rigidly anchored system of rank and tradition as over against an open societal structure. It means a rigid inequality versus a chance for vertical advance, as over against compulsive dreams of equality and democracy. It means that we have a society that has arrived or is chained more or less to the past, over against a society of becoming, a society that is on the make, prepared for pluralism, variation, and change. There's assertion made to the effect that we are most proud of that of which we have the most. Europe may be most proud of the past on that basis, and we most proud of the future, which we have more of. In pitting one society over against the other, we have one society characterized by vertical mobility as over against one characterized by horizontal stratification. The United States has never had a clerical class, a nobility, and not yet a military class. These characterize a society of prestige and rank. We have no inherited rights, no proscribed rights for a so-called elite. This means that our society has a chance to be dynamic rather than static. It's a case of fixity versus flexibility. The European individual citizen knows exactly who he is and where he belongs. His social class, his circle of friends, which is always a very small circle. We use the term friendship very loosely at times. His circle of friends, his locality, his professional course, all of this is clear and fixed from the beginning. For the American, many such things are not so firmly fixed. We may change our place of living many times. We may change our type of job several times. Our social living standards, our acquaintances, and our friends. So when we think of the American educational system as over against that of Europe, we are positing one society over against another. The American school system originated in harmony with the equality ideal. That's on the one side. And on the other side, the American school system has been the most important implement of its realization. We seek to educate free and responsible citizens, not supermen, mastermen, nor underlings, but fellow men who respect the rights, the opinions, and the persons of other men. Most of us accept the tenets enunciated by Woodrow Wilson. I think that it's possible for society to be continuously renewed from the bottom. We would like to draw the worthiest elements from all groups in American society. 3/4, at least this was true yesterday, 3/4 of American youth in their 17th year are in full-time schools. In no other country is it more than 1/4. Even as significant possibly is the fact that 1/3 of our 20-year-olds are in college. But every youth has that chance. And if the decision is not made until the 16th, 17th year of his life. The European educational system is an education structured for the production of an elite. In this chart on my right on your right too, I guess, depends on where we're sitting. We have the allocation of German youth according to school type. The elementary school is represented by this buff coloring. 85% of German youth are to be found in the elementary school. These 85% will never go to a college or a university. Attendance at school is obligatory up till the age of 14. One school that is common to all the children is what is called the Grundschule. That means the first 4 grades of the elementary school. At the end of the 4th grade, there is a screening process. And at that time, it's decided as to whether this particular child will go on to the gymnasium or not. If he doesn't go on to the gymnasium, he has no chance to enter a university. About 15% make the grade. If they are not selected to go to the gymnasium, they continue on in the elementary school. Then at the end of the elementary school, most of them by far will go into what is known as a Berufsschule, a trade school, where they will continue to the requisite legal age. They go all the way from 6 to 12 hours a week. Usually they get that in on 1 or 2 days of the week. The rest of their time during the week is used for an apprenticeship in the trade that they expect to follow. The secondary school is the one that leads up this track to the university. There is a provisional type of school that is getting to be more and more important, which we know as the middle school, the Mittelschule. It's hard to compare that to anything that we have. Maybe it is most nearly comparable to our junior high school. It gives an opportunity for an extension of education for 3 years. Some of them will go into a technical school, a Fachschule, where they also prepare for trade, but it's a full-time school, and they develop into skilled technicians. In the university, the students come about 30% from graduates of the university, from academic people. About 60% come from officials and tenured employees. Only about 6% of the university students come from parents who are workers. These 15% who are screened favorably for entrance into the gymnasium constitute what we were referring to as the elite. This examination that is given at the end of the 4th grade, when the child is 10, lasts 2 weeks. The first week stresses written work and arithmetical computation, and the second week is given over more to individual analyses. to observations of in individuals. Try to determine their maturity, their fitness for going on. There is some thought to the effect that the economic factor may not be a negligible one in determining whether the child has a chance to go on or not. A great many questions are being asked inside these countries about this particular screening process. Is that selective process reliable? Is it possible, pedagogically and psychologically, to determine that degree of fitness at the age of 10? Some are asking, is it perhaps a violation of the Constitution of the West German Federal Republic, which states that each has the right to the free development of his personality, so far as it does not injure the rights of others. Or isn't this selective process then a violation of the natural rights of the parents and the human rights of the children? Really, are these retained children too stupid? Would they hinder the study of the other children? Is it possible this test is a device to keep the admissions to the secondary schools low, to maintain a closed elite corporation? These are questions that are being asked. There can be no question as to the cruciality of this selective test. It determines the life of the child. Whether you'll be a member of the leading class, a craftsman, a laborer. It's crucial for the child, and it's crucial for the parent. One consequence that it seems to have had is resulted in a depreciation of the elementary school. After the at least alleged elites have been taken out, the elementary teachers, I have a feeling that they're only dealing with the culls, with the leftovers. And since the elementary school is the school, basically, for 85% of the youth, that probably is not good. One thing that this has resulted in is a tendency of the elementary teachers to seek to shift to the middle school, to take additional courses, preparation, so they can get into the middle school, and there they won't have to teach as many subjects. They'll have a better chance to specialize. Well, following this selection, the child, the youth, is in the gymnasium for 9 years. At the end of the 9th year, he takes what is known in Germany as the Abitur. He takes an examination over all the work of the 9 years. This Abitur examination decides whether or not he will be admitted to the university. The secondary school education is a humanistic one, and it is in some fashion a way of life. It decides that these people will belong to a certain level of society. But again, questions are being asked. Does the secondary school really produce an intellectual elite? There is a complaint that the students are overburdened with their 13 different subjects. The German people have rightly, and particularly in the universities, taken pride in thoroughness, in Gründlichkeit. But is it possible for the child to be thorough in each and all of 13 subjects? There are some of the beliefs that it is a fiction. The secondary education tends to center on knowledge, on encyclopedic capacity, rather than on understanding. Is that a proper qualification for an intellectual elite? The subject exists side by side, but without contact. It's a fragmentation without unity. The students are beginning to ask that they have closer contact with the stream of the 20th century development, with that workaday world into which they will go. Isn't there a neglect of political education, of education for citizenship? Aren't the students so wholly preoccupied with their preparation for the examinations that they have no time for anything else? That they need more leisure time for the maturing process, not to use all their time for assembling special knowledge. The examinations, and I have had some experience through direct participation, center on knowledge, ability to recall. Personality counts for little or nothing. Stuff with facts. And then test for recall. On the Treaty of Westphalia, not how that gives to us a sample for our modern world, but rather what were the detailed provisions of the treaty, and stop at that. The abitur time is a serious time for the youth and for the parents. Begin to see them to drop off their collecting of stamps, taking their dancing lessons as they have been taking them. Concentrate on passing that examination. If they don't pass, how will they ever face their friends? How will they ever adjust as far as the job and profession is concerned? This becomes so serious that occasions are not unknown where the youth commits suicide rather than face the consequences. Take an overdose of sleeping pills, or use a gun, or jump out of a high window. The adjustment to life certainly made very difficult if and when that happens. Well, let me, if I may, give you a kind of thumbnail summary. In the United States, all of our children go through all of the elementary school. In Germany, and I can say in Europe, this is of Sweden, and which is the leading nation for school reform in all of Europe, and the deviations are not great. All the children go together only through the first 4 years, or the Grundschule. Our elementary school teachers may, by preparations we know, taking a deep preparation, become secondary teachers. In Europe, that would be impossible. There is a wide gap, a cleavage, even between elementary and secondary school teachers. They are sharply divided. Our high schools are open to all of our children. It is truly a people's school. While the Herschule, the gymnasia, prepare for an elite. So those three types of gymnasia, where they, in one type, stress the classical languages of Greek and Latin, and then a second type where they stress the modern languages, and the third type where the emphasis is upon natural science and mathematics. The three types of gymnasia. In the United States, we have the basic democratic character of education. There is the fear that if we educate all the children of all the people, it can but lead to a proletarianizing of the intellect, and that they judge undesirable. Our schools tend to look to the future, to try to create a better reality. While the secondary school, there tends to be ideological. Let me do it in another way. The individual school in the United States is a place where teachers and children live together. It's a place for living. There is a place for learning, for communication of knowledge. First of all, and continuously, a stress on ability. Here, the school is under the supervision of the community. There, it's under the supervision of the state, under the ministerium. There is no partisan influence. In the United States, I think both parties agree basically on school questions. Here we have the separation of the church and the state. There we have a problem of the unified school, the community school, the confessional school, the private school, the ideological school. Here we prize a many-sidedness. There is anxiety over fragmentation, and yet they have it. In the United States, there is approval of reform, furthering everything that is new, with the possibility of getting better, of improvement. There is anxiety over reform. They're easily conservative, and experiment is taken up with skepticism. The Soviet school, and here I speak directly on the basis of Soviet sources. What I shall say about the Soviet educational system will not be what an outsider is saying. It is what they themselves say. The Soviet educational system is, I think we should say, an adaptation of the European system. They have a 7-year elementary school with an aim of 10 years of schooling for each child. This is very uneven among the various republics of the Union of Soviet Republics. They announced at Paris last month that they're going to extend it to 12, which would mean to age 19. That's the program for the future. One thing that characterizes the Soviet school is they have an exact knowledge outline for each grade. And at the end of each grade, there is a total examination over that grade work before they are advanced. They do have the abitur. Then at the end of the 9 years in the secondary school, they differentiate among those who take the test through the award of gold and silver medals. If one receives either a gold or a silver medal, one does not have to take an examination for admission to the university. They state as their goal the principles of modern science. In all of their curriculum, modern science is number one. They seek to produce a technological elite through their system, and clearly say so. The principles of modern science, the communistic spirit, and to advance cooperation in furthering socialism. They use as advanced methods of instruction as we do, but in their methods, stresses take this kind of direction. They accustom their students to work independently, especially in a specific field of science. There is a large place given to written work. They insist on much written work. They try to develop initiative and to develop the capacity to combine skill, theory, practice, the capacity to organize well. Those are stresses. And the Lenin Communist Youth Organization, the Comsol, plays a large role. And this youth organization exists to strengthen the sense of duty in and out of school. They support the teachers in the school. And two, they work, these youth support the teachers. And they work for an active communist morale. That is their obligation. Possibly Sputnik would suggest to us reform. But does it suggest a taking over of the Soviet model? I think the answer lies in our decision as to what kind of society we want. Returning to that basic concept, the comparison of educational systems, essentially a comparison, contrast and comparison of society. American education has always had a social function. Millions assimilated into citizens of equal human worth. The stress on social behavior, learning the ground rules of democracy and of community living. If we lose our liberties, either by imitation or conquest, we've all lost everything for which we live. I think the kind of society that we could expect is clearly portrayed at Brussels in the respective pavilions of the two competitors. Sputnik is featured in the Russian pavilion. Great stress upon machines. And as you go in, here's an oversized statue of Lenin with two columns, one on either side, stressing the Soviet as a state of the peasant and the worker. Everything is done on a gigantic scale, seeming to indicate a fear of being underestimated. Well, the central thing in the American pavilion is a fashion show. A lighter touch. There's a good deal through Steinberg of self-criticism evident, and man is projected to the forefront. Is it not possible for us, though rejecting an adoption of a Soviet model or rejecting the Europeanization of the American school, to realize that there are some things which we can learn from others? Is it not possible that we can combine the best of both systems, of the European system and of the American system, for the education of children everywhere, anywhere, for children are children wherever they may happen to be? And one thing, though we may think that the Princeton or Science Associate tests are quite an improvement as implements for this purpose, can we not do more with this matter of the identification of the gifted and give them an education commensurate with their talent? I saw a distinction between a superior child and a gifted child on an IQ basis. That a superior child is one who has an IQ of 120 or more. A gifted child has an IQ of 130 or more. But other characteristics are to be identified. High degree of general achievement, rapid learning and a high degree of retention, long concentration span, active curiosity and desire to know, alertness and keenness of observation, the ability to make generalizations and to do abstract thinking, superior ability in reading and arithmetic, an extensive vocabulary and ability to use words accurately, good social adjustment, self-direction and independence in work habits, and a capacity for self-criticism are possible characteristics in addition to and beyond the IQ. Based upon test scores, upon teacher and counselors' evaluation, upon their special interests and hobbies. It does seem that the tests that do the best job, the combination of the verbal or linguistic and the quantitative or mathematical. But the test scores and the school marks together, taken together, are more reliable. And could we have our screening in the junior high school at the age of 14, since there's a high degree of correlation between the kind of results you get at 14 and what you get at 18 with the same child? Beyond that, this identification of the gifted. We need a counseling program that tailor-makes in terms of the individuals who are gifted. Secondly, we'd like to suggest, stiffening of the intellectual fiber. That really, history, English, mathematics, natural sciences to be the core of the curriculum. There should be greater emphasis on languages other than English. I know we're probably all familiar with that suggestion of Superintendent Scheibler over in Indianapolis of the 4 kinds of diplomas: the academic diploma, the vocational arts diploma, the vocational diploma, and the general diploma. Differentiation there among the diplomas and in the academic, we would have the emphases as we have indicated here in the variation among the others into which we will not go. But I think the idea that one person has that equality of opportunity does not mean identity of education. Does not mean identity of education. We need to have a clear view of our goal and the stamina and the courage to pursue and to achieve it. Not only scientific competence, but also political and social competences equal to the task are what we need. We may travel into outer space, but we're fated to live on earth. And in our living together as human beings, we need competences from the social sciences and the humanities. We want America to fulfill her mission of lighting the pathway of human destiny with the beacon of democracy. We live lives of honor, of dignity, and compassion. With these as our goals, possibly we could agree with Walt Whitman when he said, "Sail, sail, thy best ship of democracy. Of value is thy freight, not for ye alone, nor the western nations alone. For the antecedent nations rest with thee. Theirs as well as thine, the destination for triumphant."